Hello indie game fans! With the release of FF7 Remake, this has got me thinking about indie JRPGs since they are a favourite of mine, but I've dropped off due to the time commitment needed. However, that doesn't seem to be a problem for many right now, and for this list, I've decided to stick with the more classic JRPG feeling titles, starting with Cthulhu Saves the World. Developer Zeboyd Games is known for their JRPGs, and this was one of the first indie RPGs to really capture my attention, showcasing the potential of cool and weird things that indie developers can do with the genre. An epic parody RPG, play as Cthulhu, whom, on the verge of plunging the world into insanity and destruction, has his powers mysteriously sealed away at the last minute. The only way to break the curse is to become a true hero, so you have to save the world to destroy it. The writing is excellent, with fun characters and some clever quality of life improvements that they have taken on into their newer titles as well, but this one holds a very special place in my heart. Some of you were surprised to find out that the recently covered first-person shooter Bright Memory was the work of one person, and in a similar way, Age of Eternity is from a small team in France and has quite the look to it, similar to, shall we say, Final Fantasy XV.
This war has taken almost everything from me. I have decided to fight for another cause, one that is meaningful to me.
If we don't do something now, Heroine is lost.
Follow two main characters on their quest to find a cure for the all-consuming corrosion that affects people, animals, and the land itself. There are some elements of positioning, flanking, traps, and more in the combat, with a crystal enhancing system for your equipment. However, this is still in early access on Steam, with story chapters dropping ever so often, but since the initial launch in 2018, things are progressing along quite nicely, so maybe it will launch in 1.0 this year.
Yeah, that would certainly dial up the Bizarro meter. This is way too much for my mind to handle.
Here he is, guys! Down with tyrants!
Another classic RPG that gets heaps of praise for good reason is Earthbound, with its modern day setting and strange creatures and enemies. And one title which looks similar is Citizens of Earth.
Let's draw up the plans.
I've been waiting for this! Yikes.
Newly elected as Vice President of the world, you need to convince your constituents to help you save the world by recruiting up to 40 of them and facing off against strange creatures. Fantastic art style and funny writing makes this a must-play. One of the very neat, older RPGs that is still worth a play is Boot Hill Heroes, set in the American Wild West, which is a significant departure from your standard high fantasy or sci-fi settings. This has you going after the notorious Saints Little Gang, and I really do like the sprites and graphical look, with awesome looking enemy designs spanning outlaws and animals. There are job hats, which come with new character classes and a customizable weapon system where you can do things like making your lasso set enemies on fire. This is the first in a trilogy of games, with the second one being released in 2017, so perhaps we will see the final chapter soon. RPG Maker has been both a blessing and a curse for the turn-based RPG, with a number of frankly bad games being put out on Steam, but Doom and Destiny stands out above the crowd. Similar to Cthulhu Saves the World, the writing is one of the highlights, where 4 nerdy friends get transported into a fantasy world and must defeat the villain to save the day. There are everyday items as consumables and equipment, such as potato chips and sunglasses, alongside dragon scale armor, knight helmets and wizard hats. Writing and plot are one of the most important factors in the genre, and this does it very well.
An epic journey awaits 3 young heroes from the town of Reja. Alina and Edisot, young and curious, go on a herb-seeking quest to help cure Austin's illness-stricken father.
One of the very cool ideas for a game is Pier Solar and the Great Architects, which released on Sega Genesis in 2010 but has subsequently been ported elsewhere. This developer wanted to make a game that would fit in seamlessly with games of the past, and man, did they succeed.
Mysterious entity. Through this adventure, they will be reborn as great heroes to protect the universe from total destruction.
Quite the classic hero's journey, as a quest to obtain some healing herbs takes an epic turn as our heroes find themselves facing the forces of destruction dispatched by a villain who wants to shape the world in his own image. Of course, the art is a huge highlight, really capturing that 16-bit feel with an in-depth tactical combat system with counter-attacks and the gather system where you can store energy to do massive damage later. Side quests and minigames round off the package, making for quite the nostalgia hit, but with a brand new world to explore.
So journey forth towards a miraculous adventure with Pier Solar and the Great Architects.
Special shoutout goes to Indonesian developer Semisoft, since I really enjoyed LEGRAND Legacy Tale of the FATEBOUNDS in 2018 when it was released. Despite being a modern release, this developer really managed to capture that PS2 era look with active turn-based combat and an epic story spanning the entire world. The characters do fit some stereotypes, such as the moody, emo main character that doesn't really speak, but the story, the most important part, kept me playing. Another thing of note is that this has gorgeous pre-rendered backgrounds similar to what you would find in original Final Fantasy VII, with quite the in-depth leveling, crafting and equipment system. Epic boss battles as well, and wholly recommended. One of the hidden gems in the genre is Artifact Adventure, an open-world turn-based RPG where you need to take out the toxic Swamp King. The world is filled with powerful mystical artifacts that can aid you on your quest, but the freedom of an airship and strange oddities like the ability to sell your party members makes this quite the freeform experience. Six character classes and over 70 endings will keep you coming back. The recently released Cthulhu Saves Christmas was out just in time for the season last December and was a title which I enjoyed since it is a smaller, more contained experience. A prank has been played on a protagonist which caused him to lose all his powers again, and he must save Father Christmas to restore his powers to, again, destroy the world. The unique aspect of this is that there are relationships to build with your party members, introducing dating sim elements, unlocking new equipment for them, but the core combo-based combat is fantastic. I love it when different characters in a JRPG can team up to do a special attack, and this game has plenty of that, with atypical status effects that can be inflicted due to the whole insanity and madness thing with Lovecraftian horror.
The world is threatened by fascists, monsters, and demons. Five heroes embark on a 30-hour turn-based RPG adventure.
This series will be familiar to anyone who frequented websites like Games or Congregate back in the day, but Epic Battle Fantasy V is a parody JRPG that pays tribute to Final Fantasy while evolving into a series of its own. Flash games do have a very special place in gaming history, having entertained me for many hours in my teens, so it's kind of sad to see the discontinuation of support, but developers like Matt Rozak have adapted to the times and made their games available on other platforms. While theoretically the 5th game in the series, it is as good a time as any to jump in with the most polished version of the series. It's full of references to other video games, puzzles, juvenile dialogue, and anime fan service, so quite the irreverent title, which is fantastic at its core.
Do you play as the bad guys? I don't want to beat up animals. Well, maybe they're all evil or something.
One word which I would use to describe Hylics is melted, since this has one of the coolest, weirdest, and trippiest art styles that I've ever seen in games. It self-describes as a recreational program with light JRPG elements, with quite an interesting combat system. More art than game, the RPG elements are still worth exploring, but if you really want to experience something really neat and surreal, pick up Hylics and go on a trip. This one's pretty neat since it recently got an enhanced edition patch, but Arafel combines the best of Japanese and Western role-playing games. Go on a quest to prevent your homeland from falling from the sky with an open world structure, which is quite interesting since it allows you to sequence break. The moment you leave the home village, most of the world can be explored, with secrets and hidden treasures abound. You can swim, jump, crawl, and fly through the air to access new areas and to solve puzzles, so quite a dynamic feeling game overall. I really love the look of this game in the character sprites, enemy designs, and environments, so for a beautiful looking, classically designed JRPG experience, this one is worth checking out. Another modern title that captured the PS2 feel, Earthlock, is actually the remastered version of an earlier release, Earthlock Festival of Magic. The developers did take criticism and feedback from the player base on the initial experience and managed to retool the game into a better one, which is always great to hear. It is a classic save the world story where a band of unlikely heroes must come together to stop an ancient evil, but the combat itself is quite strategic, with 2 stances per character and a battle board progression system in place of a traditional skill tree. On top of that, there's a home island where you can grow and harvest magical ingredients, craft weapons and so on, so again, quite a fully featured JRPG that is great. Another hidden gem clocks in with Light Apprentice, the comic book RPG. Our main character, Nate, is the titular Light Apprentice who was frozen in time for over 300 years, but awakens to a world ravaged by war, where the environment is damaged and the corruption of the Empire threatens all life on the planet. This has that classic turn-based combat, but adds in choose-your-own adventure elements where you can decide whether to kill or spare monsters, how to interact with party members, and what choices you want to make at critical decision points. I love the look of this, really hitting home that comic book vibe with active turn-based combat, which seems to be increasingly popular these days. Do note that this is volume 1 only, comprising of 4 chapters, and I'm not sure what happened to the developer since their social media seems rather quiet, but a self-contained experience that is pretty neat. One of my highlights of 2018 was KAIJU Big Battle FIGHTO Fantasy, a classic turn-based RPG using characters of a real-life parody wrestling league. This is a time-traveling RPG where our heroes have to stop the evil Dr. Cube who ripped the fabric through space and time. As always, big fan of the pixel art and the look, and the different party members do have special abilities that enables you to interact with the map, Pokemon HM style. With 7 characters to play as, ranging from a patriotic beetle, a living dust bunny, and a living potato covered in foil, these are so creative and emblematic of the organization that this game stems from. Other than that, the time-traveling shenanigans brings our heroes across a wide variety of areas which are always fun to explore, and one of the more faithful tributes to classic games. Hey guys, if you can, do support me on Patreon, since I'm currently trying to upgrade my microphone and to reinvest in the channel. You do also get access to a members only Discord channel, so thank you all for the support. A title which I greatly enjoyed and a true hidden gem is Nadia Was Here, a pixel art RPG with quite a unique combat system. This has you on a quest to solve a mystery that plagues the world, in that it is caught in a time loop and the cycle is about to reset. The combat is one of the most interesting that I have come across in games, in that your 3 characters are placed on 3 separate lanes, and switching characters at the right time to deal damage or cast spells is essential. We have the equivalent of a thief, a warrior and a mage to control, but the pixel art and visual look has to be the standout. This intentionally limits the number of colors to 16, resulting in quite a stark and memorable look, which again highlights the beauty of minimalism. A beautiful looking game from last year is STEAMWORLD Quest, Hand of Gilgamesh, set in the same universe as the Metroidvania series STEAMWORLD Dig and the side-on tactics game STEAMWORLD Heist. However, our robots are now in a high fantasy setting where it is yet another classic tale of a trio of friends whose village got burned down and their quest for vengeance, leading to them ultimately going after the big bad. However, generic story aside, the most interesting part of this is the deck building, where character abilities and attacks in combat are drawn from a pile that you determine. This also checks the box of having combo abilities between characters, so for a not so typical combat system, this one is fun to experiment with. Back to a very classically designed JRPG with Shadows of Adam, coming to us from, unsurprisingly, Something Classic Games. Play as the son and adopted daughter of a legendary hero who must uncover his dark secret now that evil once again begins to creep onto the land. As a sucker for pixel art, this one tickles that part of my brain with some really gorgeous sprites and environments. The combat includes a tactical AP management system where this regenerates between each round in battle, which encourages the aggressive use of spells and abilities, rather than having to rely on generic attacks and potions. I believe that this developer really gets it and has a love for classic JRPGs like me, so kudos to them and excited for their next project as well. Of course, Undertale makes an appearance on this list, which would be incomplete otherwise, since the mega smash hits of an indie game subverts genre conventions in more ways than one. While there is turn-based combat, the attacks and abilities come in some form of bullet hell shooter, where you need to maneuver your heart to avoid taking damage. Add to that a meta-narrative where the game can crash through desktop intentionally and you get quite the experience. Fun characters and branching paths flesh out the game, so if you have not played it, ignore the fanboys and experience it for yourself. Would love to hear your thoughts on this. A game which made my top 10 games of the year in 2017, West of Loathing has an inherent advantage since I used to play the browser-based Kingdom of Loathing back in the day, and was already on board with the developer's sense of humor. Set in the Wild West, this has you exploring and adventuring through an open world with fun character classes such as a cow puncher or bean slinger, where the writing is the main draw. For example, the store page states a cast of colourful characters to encounter, but with an asterisk, since characters are not literally colourful since the game is in black and white. On top of the adventure game elements, there is turn-based combat with a combo system in place, so if you want to laugh at some absurdist humour while experiencing a great RPG, this is one to check out. An underrated game from last year is FABLES The Everlasting Sapling, a Paper Mario looking RPG set in a bug-filled kingdom. Take on missions from the guild as you look to become full-fledged adventurers while seeking out the mystical everlasting sapling that is said to grant eternal life. The various bug kingdoms are fun to explore, with ants, bees, spiders and more, where the active turn-based combat is quite fun. Love the look of this, with a 7-chapter story that ends up being quite a hefty experience, since side missions, optional bosses, a cooking system and more are thrown in. A title which a number of you have pointed out in the best games of the decade video is Lisa the Painful, an Earthbound style RPG which gets dark rather quickly. A story about the misery of a broken man, this controls like a platformer but zooms into an Earthbound style combat system. You can recruit 30 plus party members, but they can die and be completely removed from the game. You can sacrifice parts of your body to prevent their deaths, such as chopping off limbs or losing an eye, in a world which is just absolutely miserable, where you are forced to make moral decisions where no good choice is available. A darker, more mature, grim-dark take on the genre, this is equal parts depressing and genius in design. Perhaps not something you want to look into right now, but worth a play sometime for sure. The final entry for Clemmygames here is Cosmic Star Heroine, where, if you can't tell by now, I'm a big fan of their work. A sci-fi JRPG story that has a galactic-wide conspiracy, forbidden technology, secrets, ruined worlds, multiple planets, and a huge cast of characters. This is an epic RPG experience that pays tribute to Chrono Trigger and is certainly worth checking out. The combat system, also seen in Cthulhu Saves Christmas above, is quite a unique one since your heroes have a variety of skills at their disposal, but once used, are only refreshed after the rest ability is used, which does take up a turn. Add to that a powerful boost that kicks in every couple of turns that enhances whatever skill you choose, and the depth certainly is there. Sweet art and fantastically done sci-fi world with atypical character classes, and you certainly got a winner on your hands. Another criminally overlooked game from last year is Virgo vs the Zodiac, most likely due to its release in December amid all the hubbub of Game of the Year discussions on the major gaming sites. This has you playing as the villain, going after the so-called heretics and the other Zodiac signs and their supporters in a bid to restore the Golden Age and order to the world. On top of some sweet pixel art, the active turn-based combat system is a draw here, with defense and countering playing a huge role. There are various characters, different steeds for a protagonist, environmental puzzles, and even bullet hell shooter elements, resulting in quite a complete package yet again. This is an RPG-esque RPG with stats and systems out the wazoo. While I don't believe in astrological signs and their meanings, I do love reading about mythology, so I got a kick out of seeing the personifications of the Zodiac signs. Awesome writing as well, which makes this a must-play.
There is a great horror beneath the manor. A crawling chaos that must be destroyed.
This one will be no surprise to longtime fans of the channel, since Darkest Dungeon is one of my favourite games of all time. I wanted to leave more roguelite titles off this list, but then realized that I didn't know where to put this game in another video, so here it sits at the number 1 spot. Striking, beautiful art, brutal difficulty, and that glimmer of hope and progression as you upgrade the Hamlet keeps you playing, with positional based combat and abilities that leads to quite the amount of strategy. So much variety in character classes and imposing, horrific enemies really nails that eldritch horror theme, taking the #1 spot. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, share and subscribe, check out the recommended playlist or the best pick for you, and I will see you after the jump.